Hello, my name is Miles Parscale, and this is my video post for our chapter discussing implicit bias. And our research this week all discussed entirely about implicit bias and how important it is to discuss that at an early age. So to begin this discussion, to describe why I think it's important to talk about race and racial bias in early childhood. Implicit bias, as it was stated in the first video, what is implicit bias on YouTube? These messages are, quote, unconscious because they are not at the forefront of our thoughts. They're stored in the amygdala, a small portion of the brain with primary purpose is protecting us from danger. So this brain function is just simply designed to protect us from danger. And that's where most of this implicit bias comes from. We all decide in the first minute what is scary and what's not. And in an early childhood, that's what's very important to get into with that. If you teach kids about bias to help notice the bias and how it impacts our world, then in the other article, the Matthews Jordan article talks about there is research that shows that infants as young as 3 months old notice race. So as important as it is to notice the biases, the fact that the children are noticing the race this early means that we have to do something about it earlier. The second question says, identify the role of the teacher. What if the teacher thinks the best solution is not to address any topics of race and bias in the classroom? For that, I quoted the Berger Cortez book and said, in order for children to experience healthy development, social inequities and biases must be eradicated. And they provide many different resources and citations for that to talk about how important it is that those must be addressed at an early age in order to curb that. The third question talks about describe culturally responsive pedagogy and how you practice it in the classroom. It's a theoretical model that not only addresses student achievement, but also helps them accept and affirm cultural identity while developing cultural perspectives that challenge inequities that schools and other entities may provide or perpetrate. So, in essence, as teachers and as educators, it's our job to implement this. For example, in our class, we have a couple of Navajo students that we are going to have the string game. Their parents are going to come and teach our class how to play string game. And the book talks about how important it is to not have these people make only holidays be the important parts for cultures and things to share their beliefs and their religion. And it's important to do that throughout the year as naturally as it comes, to not exotify people. And finally, for the final question, how does implicit bias influence the work we do in classroom and families? Students with IEPs, I've seen specifically that people automatically, especially even substitute teachers, anyone will assume that students with IEPs or behavioral issues are just bad kids or bad seeds, versus they are having a rough moment and they don't have the skills necessary to process these emotions that they're feeling, or the language skills necessary to tell you what happened to them in this situation. And as a person who works with people that are like that every day, it's tough for me to see others try to judge them based on that. So based on all of that, I like to come back to the beginning part, that implicit bias is so important to talk about all throughout when you're raising children, as a parent, as an educator, just in general. It's important to get that out there in the world, because the more we talk about things, the faster we can fix these problems. Thank you for listening.